You're watching Newsfeed AM, and let's bring you this story. Former Bafana Bafana player Anele Ngcongca will be laid to rest in Cape Town today. The football fraternity woke up to tragic news of the Gugulethu-born player's death. That was in November 23rd, after Ngcongca died in a car accident near Mthunzini. Now, the 33-year-old right-back was in KwaZulu-Natal at the time to spend the 2020-21 season on loan from Mamelodi Sundowns. Now, during his career, Ngcongca played for Belgian side, and while at the same time earning 50 caps for Bafana Bafana, that's the national team here in South Africa. Now, family and friends say Ngcongca will be remembered as a family man and as a football star. Let's discuss the career and, should we say, the life and times of Anele Ngcongca. And with me to do just that is renowned broadcaster Robert Marawa, a football fundi. I'm no fundi when it comes to football, Bob Marawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
being here. We are remembering someone who should have been celebrated in this country greatly, but I'm not sure what the excuse is, Rob, about the country not really, I think, standing up and celebrating this young man. He had about 279 games for the Belgian side that he played for, 50 caps for Bafana Bafana. In 2010, as I was recalling earlier, looking at his age, born in 1987. In 2010, he was just 23, 22, 23.
Yeah. Was his birthday's in October, so that was in June, July. Absolutely. And the one thing I can say though, Xoli, and you've described it so well, but we can also not be responsible for people's emotions. Anele earned the right to be one game short of 280, as you say, playing in Genk. He earned the right to be one match short of playing a testimonial year before he had to leave. And as he always spoke about, the coach who was there at the time was an extremely racist coach. So he had to leave, and that's why he went to League One on loan for one season before coming to Mamelodi Sundowns. I mean, he got brutally attacked on the field as they were training at Genk. And the coach said to him that, wow, I thought Africans were really strong. You know, and he took umbrage with that, because now all of a sudden he's starting to encounter this whole thing of racism. And he knew then that that was it for him.
Yeah.
He would have to find a different home somewhere. Coming back home, the celebration of Anele Ngcongca is a celebration for people that really loved and followed him. You guys have done a brilliant job as Newsroom Africa since this morning, capturing the events, the normal people who were there in support of the family, also just offering the sympathy to the family in that manner. For me, that's all that really matters. The who goes to the family, those at times are just some of the things that are very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But he's earned his right to be a football legend, and he is a football legend.
And I think, as with our culture in the country, Rob, when it's a time like this, when we lay him to rest, it is no time for recriminations, and I'm sure many people will say, but you touched on it, so let's go there anyway. There has been criticism towards our Minister of Sports. He finally made a turn at the home of Anele Ngcongca in Gugulethu yesterday, a day before the funeral. And I remember your big spat with the spokesperson of the minister about why it has taken so long for the South African government to go and honor Anele Ngcongca. The minister, former Minister of Sports, who's now Minister of Transport, found himself there earlier.
Correct.
Is that a reflection on Natim Tetra?
It's probably a reflection of a lot of things of what's happening in sport. Xoli, you look at Cricket SA, you look at what's happened before with Saru, you look at maybe at times SAFA, at times what's been happening in those spaces. Sport is and Colin Gee, who was his agent, who spotted Anele, who had come through for trials back then. He was a young boy, he was 18, but he had already spotted him from the age of 13. And the one thing that I've always stressed is that a lot of times we don't take sport, and especially football, as a way and a means out of your circumstances. You look at what it did to a Maradona out of his circumstances in Argentina. You look at what it's done to a Neymar out of his circumstances in Brazil. Is that it takes umfana wasekukulethu from his dire circumstances, and he would also talk and say, you know, he was there for trials and in the midst of gangsters that were surrounding them, but all he wanted to do was to play football. His mother was the one who said, go for trials, after his uncle had picked up an article, you know, saying that there's going to be trials that are going to be happening. Uncle said, and the mother was like, please go.
Yeah.
If you get through, you get through. If you don't, I'm still here to support you. And that is why that love between mom and son was always there. And Colin Gee, after spotting him, he went for one trial. He said, go home, get your birth certificate, and get 2 photos.
We're going.
We're done. With you, we're done. Don't come back again. He ran to that taxi to go back home to tell his mother the good news. You know, that was the joy, the jubilation. This is a man who, so when you're playing for a gang, and remember, maybe let me take it through to how he then got to Arsenal. Because Colin asked him, he said, what is your favorite team that you support in the UK? And he said, Arsenal. I said, okay, are you ready? Let's go. So Colin Gee had a connect then. Remember, it was under FC Fortune. FC Fortune was the team that he was playing for in the first division as it was. So they went to Arsenal. Initially he had played as a striker, then he played as a midfield. And by the time he got to Arsenal, then it was Arsene Wenger who then converted him to the right back position. So that's where it stuck. But he had also played as a central defender as well. Now, as a youngster, as an 18-year-old, he had no experience playing for the national team. So it was a 2-week stay at Arsenal. But they already had the eye on him. And when I spoke to him and he described how a Thierry Henry was so welcoming to him, even took him to his place and they chilled and they had, you know, a good time. And he had so much respect because he knew the talent that was there in him. At that time, Kolo Toure, all of those guys were at Arsenal. They were still playing at Highbury. And it was the best era. I mean, he calls him the king of Highbury, Thierry Henry. So if you're getting all that love and attention from him, that love and attention from Arsene Wenger, you are destined for great things, Xoli. That is why I'm saying that people can do whatever they want to do. Celebrate him, not celebrate him. People that knew him and what he was all about know that had it not been for those strict regulations where if you play for one of the top teams in the UK, you needed to have that exposure playing for your national team, you know, and he didn't. And that's why they were going to take him to a different team in Belgium.
Yeah.
But then Colin Gee was like, no, man, I've got a friend who's coaching at Genk. His name is Hugo Broos. Not the suit that you're wearing, Broos. So, so it was a case of, I'll speak to Hugo. Let's see what we can do and have a setup for Anele at Genk. And that was the beginning of a long journey for him in that club.
Let me ask you to pause right there. And, you know, you've gone into great detail about his footballing career overseas. And I think it came as no surprise that the article I was reading, by the way, was written by the CNN website, because they were among the first to actually bring this news that he has died. And again, it talks to why, as a country, we should probably hang our heads in shame for not celebrating him. But let's pause there for a moment and take you to the funeral itself. The funeral service is ongoing at the moment. Let's just have a listen to the proceedings now.
Sanders. Mandibulise kumntu wonke osendlini ngokulinganayo nangokushiyana kwethu. Mna andinguye uNontobeko Saunders. Ndingumntomzodwa Magadlela. uNontobeko Saunders ngudadewabo wam. Message from my mother. My son Anele, I never thought this day would come. But here am I, my child. Uthixo usasithanda Dlomo. Uthixo usenenceba even in the midst of this pain. You always say God has a plan and we have to accept it. I want to say thank you, Mntwana wam. I will miss you, my boy. I will miss your smile. I will miss your gentle soul. Umama wakho uyakuthanda. Usebenzile mntwana wam, enkosi nyana wam. I will miss you, my boy. Thank you for the beautiful flower that you left us. Usipho sethu will always be a reminder of who you are. I promise to love her, to know her, just like you did. Hamba ke mntwana wam. I find comfort in knowing you are joining your brothers, Anele, Craig, wayesaziwa ngolo hlobo, and Banele, umakapkap, undibulisele kubo, mntwana wam. It is well, my son. My God is still the same God. I will continue trusting in Him. To the greatest Son, most wonderful friends, I love you, my boy. Hamba ke Dlomo, umzamo omhle uzamile. Wanga umphefumulo wakho ungayokuhlala nengwevukazi zochezi odlamini abevuka bakuphekela isidudu bakutyisa inconco xa uzawuya kwi-practice. Hamba mntakwethu, ugatho ulufezile, uwelile uyoba sisinyanya phakathi kwezinyanya zasekhaya. Balapho ke onoluthando, balapho tatomncinci umthetheleli, zilapha ingwevu zakwatshezi, oSibiya, oJalamba, oNgcitshane, omkhonto ubomvu, omalala nentombi ivuka ithi ndizeke, ononjilo, omqala umdunga ngenduku. Sithi halala Anele, halala kwedini, uphumile, ligqekezile ilanga, kwabethi imibane, kwalanyeza, kwavela inkwekhwezi, yaphuma inkwekhwezi, wanyathela eBelgium, wanyathela eFrance, wanyathela uMzantsi Afrika. uMzantsi Afrika uyakwazi. Sikubonile, salibona ikhalelo lakho, wasitshintsha isizwe besingajongelanga ntweni, kodwa namhlanje igama lethu lawubhala. Kuthiwe namhlanje iyathotywa iflag yoMzantsi. Hamba Anele, hamba, kudala ulindile, ubizile umhla, wathi mayikhutshwe i-invitation, kanti isimemo sesakho. Hayi ubulumko obunabo, uThixo ukusebezela, kwaye khange uphikise, wavuma, ngoba ubuzazi uba wena ngwasemzini. Kanene le nto indoda yinto ehlala igoduke.
Anele Ngcongca's aunt delivering a message from her mother to the son. And when we continue, we are going to wrap up with Robert Marawa on this key message. He's already touched on the mother and son relationship. We're going to pick up on that. You're watching Newsfeed, the AM edition. This is Newsfeed AM, and as we bid farewell to Anele Ngcongca, the former Bafana Bafana player and someone who played overseas for a very long time, a celebrated, or should I say, a decorated player. And we heard just before the break the message from Anele Ngcongca's mother saying her final farewell, saying, "I will remember your smile." And of course, the praise names that the aunt bidding farewell to the son. We know that the mom fell ill, and she instructed that my son cannot be laid to rest before I say goodbye. I cannot be in hospital and he be buried. So that had to be honored. It must be very heartbreaking.
It is, Xoli, when you listen to what the aunt had to say, and just quoting from what the mom said, "Usebenzile mntanam, enkosi nyanam, I will miss you, my boy. I will miss your smile and gentle soul. Umamako uyakuthanda." Would you thank you for the beautiful flower that you left us, usipho sethu. I will always be a reminder of who you are. I promise to love her, nurture her, just like you did. He says, "Hamba ke mntanam, I find comfort in knowing that you're joining your brothers, ukholekile and banele, undibulisele kubo mntanam," and so on. This is again a reminder of the family unit, and that is why he was so respected within Igugs ngoba whatever happened, he came back home. He uplifted the community at home, but he guarded jealously over his mother. Usipho Sethu, 10 years old, he spoke about her the other day. There was an interview on City Press with Daniel Mutokhai, and he said with the whole gender-based violence scourge that is currently going on, he fears. He looks at the daughter playing around in the garden, and he's like, what's the future going to be like in this barbaric environment that we're living in right now? But he's not going to be there anymore to guide her. When you talked earlier about the legendary status, we also got to remember that the same Anele Ngcongca was selected in the team of the century for his club, Racing Genk.
Right.
Team of the century. And the likes of Christian Benteke were there. Kevin De Bruyne, Courtois was there. Didier Zokora also was in that team of the century. But amongst that whole list, he was literally at the time almost the only one who was active. 2015, he was playing. Obviously, the former teammates were the Courtois and everybody else. And an African to be named in the team of the century for Genk means that in their history, he was their best right back.
Wow.
In the entire history and existence of that club, he's the best right back. So when they paid the tribute that they did when they won 4-2 over the weekend, it was their first opportunity to honor him. And they did that not because there was pressure, they were forced. It was just a case of, we've lost our own.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to also pay tribute to the Mamelodi Sundowns team that have done the same. Twama Zulu, who he didn't even kick a ball with, he was still en route there, but they've made their presence felt at the funeral and even before then. And again, led ably by a distinguished businessman, Usandile Zungu. On the other side, you got Patrice Motsepe leading his charge. Mangoba Mngqithi will be at the funeral as well. They've done well, and I was equally proud of Stellenbosch FC, who together with Mamelodi Sundowns were able to honor him. You know, 16th minute, game came to a standstill, they clapped in his honor. You know, you hardly see that. And that is how I am saying that we can never ever forget this man. He was on the bench when South Africa played against Mexico, as you rightfully say. Opening game of the FIFA World Cup on South African soil, young man, 22 years old. But that was the catalyst, because he then went on to captain the very same Bafana Bafana. I remember there was a friendly game in Cape Town against Angola, and he led that team. He wore the captain's armband. So there was leadership qualities within him. Not only was he the fact that he was such a great player, Shakes Mashaba says he hardly spoke. He only spoke when he was about to say something constructive or he was reprimanding someone who was getting out of hand. So those were the two criteria within which you looked at a guy like this, and very unassuming. When I had the interaction with the sister, it was just purely to find out what was actually going on. So the tweet that you asked about earlier wasn't something that I tweeted out of the sky.
Yeah.
You know, it was based on trying to find out what exactly was going on, because we're a country that loves and reveres superstar. The late Joos van der Westhuizen, he was ill for the longest time. The country rallied behind him, and we saw what a hero should be like. You know, Chester Williams was again another rugby phenomenon who had the same thing, and the country was behind him. You know, Senzo Meyiwa died in that condition that he was in, but the country rallied, and we showed the kind of love. And you know, Senzo was in the beginning stages of his Bafana Bafana career. You know, this man with the international exposure, not even having played in the PSL. So you jump like the Quinton Fortunes, you know, from playing, whether it's amateur to first division, you jump PSL and you go and make it in Europe. You played Champions League, you played the Europa League. You know, this is a guy who won the league the same year in 2010. You know, he won it in Belgium. The same year we were hosting the World Cup, he was doing that. He played the most number of minutes only in that same year. So how can you not respect that? You know, you play 3,599 minutes in that season. That's the most that he had played. Wow. Came to Sundowns, and again another chapter was opened.
Rob Marawa, I could sit here and listen to you all day, just talking about this man that we should be celebrating. You know, as you talk about his career overseas, I'm reminded of Lucas Radebe at Leeds United. For me, it just, it's almost a mirror image, but perhaps not quite the same. But nonetheless, let's leave it here. Rob Marawa, thank you very much. And you've done your best to try and highlight to us how important Anele Ngcongca was.
Absolutely.
And hopefully the viewers have a better understanding now of who he was.
And again, thank you for the invitation, and my condolences to the family and everybody else that would have encountered him, the genius that was Anele. Thank you.